Hello, everybody. It is me, Pacific. I was thinking about this yesterday. Busy working 11 and a half hours doing field trips and stuff. I actually had a nice group of sixth graders for a change out of one of the schools that I had a route out of that was horrid. So hopefully they don't get too corrupted with the older kids. I was thinking about women. Women always, not all, but most women I hear complaining about relationships say men don't want commitment, men don't want long term. And I started thinking about that looking back in my own life. There's a gal right now who's divorced. I didn't know her situation. I was walking around the lake one night. She eyeballed me, I eyeballed her. She kept smiling. We walked around, kept smiling. And then she finally expressed an interest in me. Then I find out she's married, and I said, oh no, we're not going through that again. Well, she divorced the guy. She saw me, she saw somebody else, and saw somebody else. And basically, the question she asked is, could you move in with me and help me raise my children? And I said, oh, no. I said, what you need to do now that you're divorced is that you need to spend time by yourself and get on your feet. Oh, no, I've got to have somebody. And the first thing that went up was the cash register noise. Ka-ching! She's looking for money. She hasn't worked, not out in the world. She worked raising her children. And now she's got to get a job, and that scares her. I did, as I told you, got involved foolishly with somebody who was involved, married. I told you all about that. And that washed up on the beach. But I've dated many single gals, and that ended up not. I have watched American women over the last couple decades, and they do not want long-term relationships. They operate on emotions. They like the clandestine fling. They like to be made to be treated like a queen and felt good, and they love sex. But they don't want commitment either. And one of the things I've asked myself is, why is this happening? Because women don't need us? They do need us, but they only want us for the fringe benefits, not the long haul. Even somebody I know now returned to her husband simply for utilitarian purposes. Very sad. I told this friend of mine, I said, make sure you go back to him because you love him, not what he can do for you financially. I know it's very hard. No, it's not hard. Quit using people. We guys have heard all our life that we're pigs and that all we think about is sex. If I may be candid with you, I was told that by a woman who called me one night and said, I just want you to come over here and I need to get laid. And in the very next sentence said, that's all men think about. And I said, hold it. You saying this about men, but what is it you just said? You got that urge and you want it fulfilled, and then bye-bye. I'm telling you, I find most women don't want a long-term relationship. Remember I told you about the church secretary that came on to me who was Little Miss Spiritual? She's my age and has yet to be married. Ironically enough, she confessed to me that she was having, that another woman at church hugged her, a teenager to be exact, and she felt something. And I thought, oh boy, I'll tell you something. That right there tells me everything. I'm not going to have sex before marriage. I'm not going to do all this stuff. And I'm going to be so spiritual, and I'm going to put you under my spiritual microscope. And if you don't measure up, I'm going to cast you out. Now, all of a sudden, she sees another woman and sees those bumps under her shirt and is moved by that. Is it possible that American women are being so picky, so particular, especially Christian women, that they're burning in lust, and instead of marrying rather than burning, that they're now turning to other women? I think so. But let's ask a very quick question here. with a lot of answers. How come men don't want commitment? Well, let me give you some good reasons. Men are afraid of commitment because when they get involved with a woman and after all the sweetness wears off, a lot of women are a basket case. Case in point, I know a couple that's been married 50 years. I have watched this couple. I've known them for a long, long time. Every day, the woman bitches about something. And I'm not going to get into all those things, but it's trivial stuff. Asks him to go to the store. He tries to find what she wants. They don't have it. He gets the next best thing. He comes home. She gives him the riot act. Every day, I witnessed complaining. Why are you cooking that smelly fish? It doesn't stink. Yes, it does. It makes me gag. Why are you using that dish soap? It makes me... Everything. Every day. This is somebody I know and had the privilege of watching, and every time my involvement, every day there was some sort of a complaint. Come home from work, there was a complaint. I was like, what is this? High maintenance, contentious woman. The Bible says it's better to live on the corner of a roof than with a contentious woman. Better to live in the desert than with a contentious woman. I watch the women that I work with at work. A coworker from another terminal chatted with me yesterday, said she went on a field trip also. And she said, yeah, I was with one of your drivers. I said, oh, who was it? She told me, and I said, oh, what do you think of her? Because I don't have high regard for this driver. She goes, she's very loud. I said, she's downright obnoxious. Black girl who thinks her stuff don't stink and loves to draw attention to herself constantly. She makes it a point to say in the break room, I got my husband, I love my husband, I don't want no man touching me. And all her cleavage and boobs are showing, and she talks very loudly. And I think, what husband would want to put up with a woman like her? Somebody who is desperate indeed. Why do men not want commitment? Because men have learned that if you try to criticize where criticism is due, you're in for a fight. Even this elder woman I know, you cannot tell her she is wrong. People use the wrong soap. You should wipe your hands on the dish towel and use it for dishes too, because there's all this bacteria. But then we find an apple in the yard that's been chewed on by a squirrel, and she's going to eat the apple. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. What are you doing? Oh, well, I can just cut that part out. But there's squirrel saliva on that thing. Little tongue going, ah. When I watch stuff like this, when I drive in traffic, making a right turn, SUV speeds up to the stop sign, they see me. They see my turn signal. They see me negotiating the turn, but women always keep going up. Okay, now we're blocked. Okay, now I can't go, you can't go. And then they sit there and look at me. They've got just enough room to either back up or just go at the intersection. They sit there. I stop. And I just look at them. And they stare at me with that steely-eyed look. And I go, okay, dumb broad. Do you know what reverse is? You saw me coming. If you back up, I can turn the corner. If you go forward and get out of the way, I can turn the corner. They sit there. I watch women, yuppie women in a neighborhood that is full of people, pedestrians, drag their kids, push their strollers. Bus finally gets a break to go. There's all this activity going on. I start to go, and crap. Woman pulls her kids right out, doesn't even make eye contact with me, and I hit the brakes. I'm going to say something, viewers, and a lot of women are going to get very mad at me. When I watch women behind the wheel all day, every day, most of them are dumb ASS. They are very inconsiderate, very me first, going to pull up and block a bus from turning because they're on a freaking power trip, or they don't care and pay attention. Yesterday, I was waiting to make a left turn. It's a split road, so you have this median in the middle that's not even long enough It's a goofy setup. Stop sign. Stop at the stop sign. Cross the first half of this boulevard. Pull out to the middle. Stop at the next stop sign. My butt's hanging in the other traffic lanes. Cannot be helped. It's the only way out of the place, right? So the cars come in front of me down this road, and they turn left towards me. One car, two car, woman in minivan, and stops right here. Now I can't go. She can't go. The traffic behind her can't go. And she looks at me, and I didn't honk, because these women in this lovely society of ours, if I honk, they'll write my number down and call and say, road rage, just for tapping the horn. But I did, under my breath, go, you stupid broad. She can't hear me. Gosh, she ain't going to call. What's she going to say? Well, he mouthed something. How does she know I'm not talking to students behind her? I don't lean forward. I don't make faces. I just hold the steering wheel. Go, you dumb broad, stupid woman. I talk to myself when there's no students on board. So I can't go, she can't go, and then she keeps looking at me. And then it slowly begins to dawn on her, oh, I guess if I'd have stayed here, he could have. Yeah. But women are smarter than men, of course. They're all about enlightenment, and like I said in my other video, they're not about equality. They're about dominance. But so far, they're not doing a real good job of dominating. It's like, if you're going to be the survival of the fittest, you guys better get smarter than you are. I don't want to commit to a woman who's bitching about everything. Just this week, I observed the following. I was cooking some fish that has no smell to it whatsoever. The person was complaining that the fish stank in the place here. Her own husband came in and said, I don't even smell it. Oh, I do. It makes me sick. It makes me just sick. And I don't cook it often. And I try to do it when she's not in the kitchen. But for some reason, every time I cook, in she comes and decides to do some major cooking project. And I finally said, you've told me over and over how this bothers you. What is your point? Well, you shouldn't eat that cheap stuff. Well, if you'd like to buy me salmon, I definitely will oblige you. But meanwhile, I'm paying for my food, and this is what I buy, and it doesn't smell. If you lived with me in the Philippines and smelled the dried fish that the Filipinos cook, you'd really roll over. I don't say that stuff. I be polite, gracious. But I've learned with a woman like that, you literally have to pick up your stuff and leave the room. Just go away. You're not going to argue with foolishness like that. This is one who says that she's got the gifts of the Spirit, is filled with the Spirit, and is into the charismatic Pentecostal hoopla. And you watch this stuff and you go, really? Does she have it any more closer to the flame of God than any other woman I know? Nope. Drives her own man nuts a lot of the time. This is not an attack. It's just that I've made observations. I watched as I was growing up. My mother gave me no reason to be committed to a woman. Pushed her husband away. He would go to hug her. She'd push him away. And all my life, they lived in separate beds, separate parts of the house. She bought a condo. She lived in the condo. He lived in the house. Then they lived together. Then they lived in separate quarters. Then he'd go get an apartment. And to this day, it's the same. He lives in a different room, an addition on the back of the house. And I look at that and I go, what an oppressive, stupid, pathetic marriage. It would have been better for them to divorce, part their ways. It was not the kind of a woman for my dad. Never mind my dad's heart. My mother gets her way, or the highway. And what really bothers me is you can't talk to these women. There was another woman in my family who became bipolar. Now, I don't know a lot about bipolar, but when she was on her meds, she seemed to be in her right mind. All my life, I heard out of her mouth her complaining about my uncle. My uncle seemed like a nice man to me. He was always polite to us kids. And, as a kid, I heard all the women in my family bitching about the men, bitching about each other. I heard the women in my family gang up. Even my own ex-wife said, Pacific, with your family, it's the flavor of the month club with your mother. She gets mad at somebody and gets everybody to join her side. And I said, yep, it's been that way as long as I've lived. A lot of the women in my family cannot live without the conflict and the drama being against somebody. And then when that subsides, then they're on to somebody else. I remember when it was my ex-wife and I. We were the flavor of the month for a long, long time. And that's when I finally stood up and wrote everybody in my family a letter telling them, well, this is what I recall growing up. This is the model and example you gave me, so let's have a chat. Wow. I might as well have just pulled my pants down and urinated on the fresh dessert they made and put at the table for the party. Because when I did that, my own father came over to my sister's house and said, well, Pacific's done it this time. They have not been in contact. And we're going to talk about some of that stuff. A lot of people are very religious. They stay in a marriage because they believe divorce is wrong and that God condemns it. And the Bible does say don't break covenant with your wife. Neither one of my parents are Christians. They think they are, but they're not. And I'm not saying that maliciously. I look at their behavior. To me, a Christian is one who can admit, I blew it and I'm wrong. Why do men not want to be committed? Because I was committed to 3 women. One, not my total fault, but the controlling father. That woman I had no business with. The second one, I made a choice. The third one, I made a choice. And the third one, I loved. She was a Filipina. And I am going to say what a Canadian viewer friend of mine said. He's involved with Filipina, and all they do is suck you dry of money. And I'm going to say something. I want to be very fair. I'm becoming more objective about things. Though I love Asian women, tend to love them more than my own kind. I saw a lot of Asian women are all about money too, and a lot of Filipinas, one I know right here in Denver, living in a lesbian relationship, told me to my face, I'm not lesbian, I'm not into this, but she stays with this girl because she gets free rent, free Wi-Fi, free cable, can sit on her butt and watch TV and do whatever she wants. I know the person who is going with her, and the whole thing disgusts me. And I've since stopped talking to that person, who was a very good friend of mine way back in the 90s. A lot of Filipinas are users and takers and not givers. You American men thinking about dating Filipinas, be very, very careful. Not all are like that. I met many sweet ones in Hong Kong that adored me and were nice, like the one I told you about that moved my heart. She never asked for a dime from me. Why would I want to be involved in a long-term relationship or commit to these women? Women in America have trained us men even more so to just say, you know what, if I can just get a quick lay and feel good, okay. Women have helped cause that problem. Sorry, women will counter, oh, men have always been pigs. Well, you guys are making it easier for us to do that. Even men going their own way say they have sex. Women have reduced themselves to something to be used because all they've done is use us men. Burn us in the courts, divorce us, get alimony, get child support, get all our money, and then bitch about us for the rest of our lives. I watch the elderly women in my family and in other families bitch and chew down and tear down their husbands. And all of these women that I'm talking about, their husbands were the breadwinner. Their husbands bought them beautiful, nice, upper middle class houses. And what does a man get when he marries an average white woman in the United States? A whole lot of bitching going on. And you know what? That kind of stuff turns me off. There are a lot of women who do this. I see it all morning. Yesterday, making a right turn, turning a corner. Crosswalk here. I start to turn. Just before I turn, a woman comes down to within 30 feet of the crosswalk, walks diagonal across the road with her dog, looking at me the whole time. I was already starting to turn the corner. She wasn't even in the crosswalk. And I just looked at her and I muttered under my breath, dumb broad alert. She's staring at me, carrying her sack of tennis balls and walking her golden retriever, and I just shook my head. Didn't honk. Because if I did, I'd get called on. When women are behaving like this, why would I want to pursue a biatch like that? How about if you use the crosswalk? How about if you make eye contact with me? I'm at that intersection, I'm starting to turn, and then you decide to cut 20 feet the other side of that thing and block me and then walk diagonally across the street, which is illegal as hell. I see this stuff all day long. All day long. I was up at a place called Dinosaur Ridge yesterday. Didn't have any problem yesterday, but last spring I was up there with field trips. Dinosaur footprints, dinosaur bones, all in the mountain, everything. It's a two-lane road. One part of the road is used as a bicycle path. The other part is used for vehicles, but when you got several vehicles, you need to stay in your proper lane. If there's no vehicles, then you drive on the wrong side of the road going down and the correct side of the road going up. But it's dicey because there's a curve, and you better make sure there's no other vehicles coming. Well, there were vehicles on the road, so I go up the bike lane portion of the road. Woman comes down on her bike and rides right up to the front of my bus and is staring at me. The teachers and the people on my bus go, "What is she doing?" I said, "I guess she thinks that I'm supposed to move." So I stopped. She shakes her head, points at me, and, my entitlement. We're having more problems with cyclists in Colorado. But we got women now taking on big vehicles, running stop signs. You honk at them, and they're kicking the sides of vehicles, flipping off people. I'm telling you, the day is going to come when somebody's going to get out of their car and punch the living poo out of these people and put an end to that. I hate cyclists in Colorado. They are the rudest bunch on the road. And women taking on us men, taking on a school bus with children, not looking and going, "Okay, that bus is going up the road. He's going to be out of my way in 2 seconds." Nope, they want to fight. Most white women want to fight. Most white women want to pick the nitpicking shit out of us males, and then they wonder today why we don't want commitment, why we look at them as a fast, get laid type of situation, because that's all they've made themselves worth. And more, Pacific is even looking at them going, "I wouldn't even make love to you. No, thank you. Not worth the drama." Now, what I'm saying from a Christian perspective, we know what the Bible says about this, not justifying sin. I'm talking from a purely logical, secular perspective that women today have allowed themselves to become worthless and persons to be used because they're using us men. They want us for money. We said, "Okay, we want you for sex," and then goodbye. Let's add something else into the mix. What American women have done. American women dress provocatively. American women, feminists, endorse pornography. They've never once screamed and yelled about pornography. Did you notice that? They complain for years that women demean women and that they look at women as sex objects, but they never say anything about pornography because feminists are all about freedom of speech, right? It's okay for a woman to be a prostitute and use her body to make big money. And it's wrong for a man to condemn that. And it's wrong for a man to cheat on a woman. But yet there's all this porn out there. It's in your face. And women in the workplace are in your face with their pornographic wear. Women have turned themselves into objects to be used and not people to be loved. Congratulations, American white women, and some blacks, and some Latinas, and some Asians. You did it to yourself. And don't tell us men that we did that. It is time for you girls to put on your big girl panties, step up to the plate, and start admitting that you guys have screwed up too. We're tired of it. Why would I want a long-term relationship with a woman like that? Why would I want a long-term relationship with a church lady who thinks she's more spiritual than everybody and is mean, rude, and then turns and tells me that she is having lesbian desires because she's tried to deny, natural desires and listen to her pastor and everybody that you can't have sex before marriage and all that, which I agree with that, but won't even date a man because the Christian culture in America men have done this too, and women, you better make sure you pick the right one. So now these women are on this elusive hunt for this big mother lode of gold in the Superstition Mountains in Arizona that doesn't exist. That's a real story, by the way. There are people going to the Superstition Mountains trying to find this lost gold. They haven't found it. Women, the Bible says it is better to marry than to burn with passion. Let me say something to men and women about sexuality that is going to be very pointed. If you keep denying yourself, not dating somebody because you're trying to be so spiritual, you're going to find you have a war on your hands between your legs. I know a lot of men, because they haven't been able to get a girlfriend. Somebody introduced them to same-sex desires, whatever. A lot of women. And the reasoning goes like this. Well, I'm not really having sex. Yeah, this is kind of twisted, but I don't have to worry about getting pregnant. There's a lot of rationale behind why people are doing this. It's wrong. Feminism is encouraging women to become lesbian. They're proud of that move. Very proud. Anything that can say no to the American male is trumpeted, is lauded, is welcomed. I tell you, women, date a man. Get to know him and quit the stuff. It's not going to change. I don't care if you've been married 50 years. Women, you need to stop bitching at your husbands. You need to stop being petty. I know many women where I have gone in and cleaned up an entire house, and in 5 minutes of them getting out of bed, made a huge mess in the kitchen. Dumped fertilizer on the plants after the rug around it was vacuumed. There's fertilizer all over the floor. And I watch women do this stuff, and they wonder why us men just get sick and tired of them. Women aren't very smart today. They can tout themselves. They can go to church and say, well, God loves me. God's got my back. Honey, it's time for you to face it. You got problems. Why do men not want commitment and long term? We tried, and this is what we get. It's kind of like when I was a kid and thought that Halloween was cool back then. My cousin, sister, and I went to a haunted house thing. At the end of the haunted house, there's some ghoul standing there dressed up saying, free candy in the pumpkin. So I cut open pumpkin, and like dummies, we all put our hand into it and grab a bunch of pumpkin guts. That's what happens when you get involved with most white women. You think you're getting this beautiful, sweet woman, and you get involved with her, and you become a tar baby, and you're covered in stuff. People wrote me about my ex-wife and said, you're lucky you got out of that with $50K. I know that. I know that. I left a message the other day saying, I have yet to hear from my son. It's been 1 month. I need my son to contact me. No answer, no response. But when she has a crisis, she'll call my phone and call my phone and call my phone. This time, I'm not going to answer. In fact, I'm just inclined to change my number and say, you know what, forget it. I want commitment. I want a long-term relationship. But even on YouTube here, let me be candid. I've had some women be nice to me. I've had some women be kind to me. We start chatting back and forth. I said, why don't you give me a call? I don't know where you live. You know, you can call me, email me. A lot of these women only want to chat through YouTube. They don't want to call. They don't want to. I sit there and go, you know what? Women are not interested in long-term. They like light and superficial, and they may like my videos even, but a lot of women, they don't want to go beyond this medium. I don't know why. People are afraid to pick up the phone and call me. You see my videos. You think I'm going to do something to hurt you when I'm making videos where you can make a video saying, you know, Pacific and I were talking about... Come on, man, I know better than that. Now, I'm not saying this to make people feel guilty. I've only done this to a few people, but they will not call. Women like to hide and be superficial and like to write. And I've told you before, I don't like all that. I'll write up to a point and I'll say, call me, talk to me. You want to be involved with me, communicate with me via the phone. And if we hit it off, why don't I come out and meet you? I'm willing to do that. Still, even though I lost my shorts on the girl in Hong Kong. But no, women don't want commitment. And then those same women, even some of the viewers have told me about a bad situation they were in. The husband didn't love them, the husband cheated, this and that. They will not take a chance to meet a nice guy. I think personally that some women like being in a victim stage. My observation. I think more and more women, even some of my viewers, they're not dating guys, and I will watch. And 10 years from now, they will probably be full-fledged lesbians. I'm starting to watch this stuff going, girl, stop doing that. Find a decent guy, date him. And if he's a jerk, leave him. Don't go on and on. Just say, you know what? You're not the type for me. But some of this stuff has got to come to an end. I'm using social media to get through to people, but I'm using social media to get people to think, number one. And number two, I have another motive in this. It'd be nice to go somewhere with this. It'd be nice to hook up with people that I could make community with. It'd be nice to find a lover that I could have for the rest of my life. That may or may not happen. That's not why I make my videos. But one of the reasons why men don't want long-term relationships is they're just going to get that porcupine looks really cute, but you go to pick it up and all those spines stick out, and that's what you get with most women today. And most people that watch my videos know I'm not a woman hater. I'm not. I love women. I'm just commenting on what I see and observe. And until American women step up to the plate and stop writing endless emails and stop complaining about their ex-husbands. And one of the things that women are doing to me that I'm getting sick of is they complain to me about their ex. That pulls on us to go, oh, well, let me show you something different. Then you start getting affections towards them, and then they don't want to call, don't want to do this. And I just finally say, you know what, I'm done with this. This is girl stuff. Stop complaining to us men about all the men that abused you. You're trying to elicit sympathy, and I need to stop giving it. Deal with it. The guy was a jerk. Move on. But more what I'm seeing is I think some of the women have procured some of that, if I'm using the right word. They've brought some of that upon themselves, and they're doing what everybody else does. The man's fault, man's fault, man's fault. I have no fault. I was so good. I was so loving. I was so faithful. You did everything perfectly right. Okay. I don't believe that. I'm just starting to see a pattern, and we are on a pattern of self-destruct. American women are on a pattern of alienating us men. They're on a pattern of heading towards lesbian behavior. They're on a pattern of being in love with themselves. They're on a pattern of destroying the American male, bitching at us, putting us down, tearing us down, and then turn around and question, how come men don't want a commitment? Who wants to live with a raging bitch? I don't. I see it here. I see it all over the place. I look at what men do, sacrifice for their women, and the stuff they put up with, and I thought, how come you don't stand up to that broad? Well, because to do so, you're just going to have a fight. Wisdom tells me, see, I'm taking a different tack. If I date a girl and she starts in with me like that, I'm going to say, you know what? You're going to do that one time, and that's going to be the end of this. Because if you do it again, I'm going to break up with you, and you're out. I'm not going to have a combative, contentious woman. No ifs, ands, or buts. You work with me, you talk to me like a human being, and you show me respect, and I'll love you and show you respect. But it don't go the other way around. You don't get to be the alpha female over me, and I'm not going to be involved with an alpha female. If you're an alpha female, you're a mangina, and I have no interest in that. 16-year-old Aussie girl wrote me, taking on some pretty big issues, saying that, well, a man needs to respect and love me, and I don't want a dictator. I never, ever in my videos condone a man being a dictator, running all over the woman's feelings. Man, it is amazing that when you talk about submission today, the first thing women do is, you want women to be property, and you know what? Quit the drama and the lying. A woman is not my property. But why is it that women seem to think that they can still be married and do whatever they want, and we men aren't supposed to say anything? Women, you don't exercise that. You put controls all over us. Every woman I've been involved with wants me to wear a collared button-up shirt and do this. I'm not going to do that. Well, but I think it would make you look... You know what? You fell in love with me in a jeans and t-shirt. Don't change me. Work on my bad habits, yes. But dress the way you think I ought to dress? No. But women don't want to hear criticism at all. But yet they want to criticize and control their men and want their men to do everything they want them to do. But a man's not allowed to do that. I don't believe in that. There are times when I have said, when I was in Hong Kong, there were times I turned right around to one of my lady friends and I said, you know what? Silence yourself. I've heard enough. Now stop. She just looked at me and I said, hey, you know what? You're over here eating and you're criticizing my cooking. Hey, you're a guest in my house. If you're cooking for me, I don't come in here and tell you how to cook the stuff. She did that in front of all my flatmates. And even they looked at her like, you're overstepping your bounds, girl. Men need to be men, and they need to be allowed to be men. And if women don't like it, men don't get involved with women like that. If women want a new defined male, then get away from them. We men are men. That doesn't mean we excuse our faults and be jerks. But women are not to control us. End of story. And I see it in marriages of 50 years where guys can say, I was married 50 years. Well, bless God. Your wife controls you. She wears the pants, and you haven't got her into subjection at all. You know what? I will have none of that. It ain't worth it. You know what? I'm finding across this American landscape, women are lying and it's smoke and mirrors. They don't want commitment at all. They complain that men don't want to commit, but then they have a man who actually shows an interest in them, gives them their phone number, and they run. American women like drama. American women like to play the victim, and they like to grovel around in their misery and complain. I watch it at work. There's a woman who's married to a guy, or not married, but dating a guy, got pregnant. The in-laws don't accept her. She bitches every single day at the workplace about this. And I said, there's plenty of guys you could date that would treat you. Oh, but I love him. Yeah, as you're bad-mouthing him to 30 people in this room. Women, grow up. If you don't like the guy you're with, leave him, but quit tearing him down to everybody. Don't stay with him and bitch at him. This is Pacific signing off. Bye-bye.